Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Repeat Rod, and today we are going to be doing another tier list, but this time we're going to be looking at Fallout 3. We're going to be looking at Fallout 3's DLCs right now because I recently streamed all the way through all of Fallout 3, and I haven't played the game in maybe 5-6 years before that, so it was very nice to get back into the game, play through it again, and re-experience a lot of the things of Fallout 3. I vaguely remembered quite a bit of it, which I was really surprised at when we were playing through it, because I remembered mostly like unique things, where bobbleheads or where power armor, things like that was. Not specifically how to move around the map or anything like that. So we're going to be talking about each of the DLCs and my opinions on them. I have played through these multiple times in the past. I played Fallout 3 a lot when I was a teenager. And like I said, I recently played through it again, so I figured it would be fun to do this. We're just going to go, I think, in the order that they were released in. So first up, we're going to go with Operation Anchorage. Overall, I kind of like Operation Anchorage. I think that it has issues. Our very first mission is where we have to go investigate the signal, in which case we meet up with the Outcast. We got to fight our way through some super mutants. Pretty standard stuff that you would kind of expect. Nothing too difficult there. We get into the bunker, and then they tell us to go inside of the simulation, and we are transported to a simulation of the American and Chinese war at Anchorage, Alaska. So everything's winter-like. We are fighting the Chinese as an American soldier, and we have to do various things. We have to blow up their main guns, we have to destroy their various bases, where they make tanks, where they get information, where I actually don't remember what the last one is. I think it's their disruptor field or something like that. Fight your way through. You get access to some pretty interesting weapons. All the weapons in this you have are really unbreakable. There is quite a few glitches that you can actually, or bugs that you can exploit in Anchorage, that I used to exploit very much on the console, so it's even easier to do it on PC. But on the console, I remember that you can get the general's clothing that you normally wouldn't have. You could steal you wouldn't really steal it. You could take everything that you had in Anchorage actually out into the wasteland, and then you have weapons that were pretty much indestructible, armor that was pretty much indestructible. If you do a certain glitch or a certain bug exploit where you would take dead bodies, either that of the Brotherhood outcasts or of Gary that you could find in there, shove them into a pod, and then do a reverse pickpocket pretty much, or I guess just a regular store stuff while the game was still loading. So you could have like a sniper rifle with infinite sniper rounds pretty much. You could have a Gauss rifle that has pretty much infinite health. You could have assault rifles with, infinite health. It was really good. You could do a lot of stuff like that. So those are all cool things that you could do. But the actual DLC itself, the story I think is okay. I would have liked if it tied in more to the main story, or if the main story explored it more, where the only real thing about Anchorage that is that there's an Anchorage War Memorial, and that there is some kind of vague dialogue that you can find if you look at different computers or different areas, where you can find the Chinese spies that were living in the U.S., and you know that the U.S. and China went to war in this world, where the U.S. won at Anchorage, this leading to the Great War. So this was the war before the Great War, or the start of the Great War, I guess. So it does kind of affect the story in that way. But this feels kind of like a one-off mission in a way. It's like a one-off, very long mission. You go there, you do, I think it's 3 or 4 main missions. You can do a side mission, which is collecting all the briefcases. If you collect all the briefcases, you do get a unique perk, which gives you, I think, 3 to your lockpicking, 3 to sneak, and 3 to one other skill. I don't remember what it is. So you do get bonus points for that, and you're going to go to those places anyway. You just have to explore. Each place has 2 briefcases that are on the way. So out of your 5 points of interest, you'll get them all if you know where to look, or if you just look it up where to find them. They're really not all that hidden anyway. You can find them just by wandering around, and you'll get them. But the last fight in this is kind of underwhelming in a way, because the normal way that you do it is you can either fight the general at the end and kill him normally, in which case it's really not all that difficult to do, just because it's more or less a one-on-one fight since everybody else is preoccupied. If you let the fight continue on, though, more power armor troops will actually come in and try to kill you, which makes the fight quite a bit more difficult. But for the most part, it's not a real difficult DLC. There are some hard parts to it. The snipers, the invisible guys, they are kind of difficult to see the first time you play through. The area I like. The story is okay. I don't think Anchorage is one of my favorite DLCs overall, but it's a pretty decent one, and I'd probably put it up into B tier. After that, we have the Pitt, and the Pitt is probably one of my favorites in terms of story, because I find that the story is very good from the Pitt. Even though it's fairly basic, I like that it has a lot of moral ambiguity behind it, and your choices do actually matter quite a bit more in the Pitt than they do in most other missions, I would say, or at least they feel more impactful. In this DLC, you get another distress signal. You go and investigate it. You find a man who wants you to go to Pittsburgh and save the slaves that are there, save his people, because the city's been taken over by a warlord who has enslaved a bunch of people and has raiders, taking over the place. Pretty straightforward story in that regard, where you are definitely the hero. You're going to do this to save these people, and then things get complicated along the way. The missions for this I actually really enjoy. One of the big aspects that I really like about the Pitt is that they take away your equipment, so you cannot use your really overpowered gear that you could have gotten from the Wasteland to bring here. I really like that when they do that in these sort of games, since it forces you to adapt and use other weapons that you normally wouldn't use, or other tactics that you wouldn't use. All of your stuff gets taken away regardless of what you do, unless you use hacks or, unless you just cheat or whatever it might be. And then you're kind of thrown into the Pit. You go out to the steel yard. You're supposed to be collecting ingots. For every 10 ingots that you collect, you get an extra prize from the guy in charge of this. So the first couple prizes really aren't that great. They'll give you a little bit of bonus, and then the later prizes actually are pretty good. Especially, I think it's the 50 or 60 mark one, where you get the metal blaster, which is arguably the best weapon in the game. Incredibly strong. It's pretty much a long-range shotgun. Shotguns in this game are pretty much the top tier weapons. Some of the other prizes are also really good. The one that you get once you find all 100 ingots is really good. You get the power armor that looks very similar to the main, antagonist of this one. As we progress onto the story, we find that there's even more interesting factors, where the man who sent us here is not exactly who he claimed to be. He was actually a soldier in this guy's army. The cure that we're looking for to free the slaves is actually this person, the main antagonist's child. And you're left with a very morally gray choice there. Either steal away the child and then proceed to kill pretty much all the raiders and the city off. That's not the slaves. Join the raiders and still have the slaves be slaves, with the hope that they become free based on, I believe it's Asher's word. Asher is the main antagonist to this, and I find Asher to be an incredibly interesting character. He's probably the most interesting character in Fallout 3, I would say. I do have some real issues with the Pit, though. First up, this thing has crazy amounts of bugs and crashes. On PC, it still has crashes, and I was playing this on Windows 10, which is already kind of buggy because this game is not optimized for that. More crashes than usual at the Pit. I remember on console there being some major crashes, as well as just some game-breaking bugs where you would just fall through the floor in certain areas. Sometimes you just fall out of the map and die. Sometimes you had to reset the console pretty much, and then just keep hoping that you got saves to actually get all the ingots, because some of them were in kind of odd places where the floor just was not stable to do anything about. I think I remember once flying through part of the building and just dying. I don't know why. I think that was on console. It was just a funny moment that happened. So it is full of bugs, even after patches and stuff like that, because I remember getting this when it first came out, and it was super buggy then, and it got better after it was patched in later updates, but still pretty bad on console and still not great on PC. I'm sure that there's mods that you can use to better fix that up. The other problem I have with the Pit is that you can return back to the Pit, but there's very little reason to actually return back to the Pit. There's really no exploration after that point, because you've already done everything. There's only 5 or 6 areas in total in the Pit, and that's it. So they are fairly wide open areas, and they do have some interesting aspects to them. I do like the gladiatorial fight that you take place in. That is really cool. I think if it didn't have all those problems, it would probably be S tier for me in terms of the DLCs for this game. But since it does have all those issues, I think I'm going to put it up into A tier. It definitely could be better. Our next DLC is Broken Steel, and this is a continuation DLC from the main story. So to actually access this one, you have to complete the main story. I think you do have to complete the main story in a specific way, though. Either with you sacrificing yourself or with you having a companion sacrifice yourself at the end of the game, rather than using the Enclave modified virus. If you do that, I don't think it will allow you to do this. I think it's just like kind of game over, and then it will let you load in from a save and then choose a different option leading up to that final choice in the game, or at least in the regular game. So with this, you wake up several weeks later after the events of Fallout 3, and now the water's been turned on, and not necessarily new structures have popped up. Some of them have, and some of them you can now access. You can also get access to some other buildings as well, which you previously couldn't do. I think you could in the base game of Fallout, but were just locked away after that because they were tied into quest lines in Broken Steel. There's new side quests in this. There's a new main quest. The main quest is honestly pretty underwhelming in Broken Steel, since it's essentially go with the robot, fight the Enclave. The robot gets destroyed, then go and do some other chores like go fight a bunch of Deathclaws and get this Tesla coil that we need to make a Tesla cannon so that we can shoot down vertibirds. Even though the last time I played this, I was really kind of surprised at the Tesla cannon. It was really only good against vertibirds. I remember it being pretty good against other enemies, but when I was shooting it at other people, it just didn't do much. I'm not sure if it got changed or if I just don't remember it very well. Still a fun weapon to use, and there is some kind of cool things about this because you can just continue on the story then. You can do all the side quests. You can go explore the wasteland more. This does give you a few more areas, but you can't go back to those areas, or at least there's no real reason to go back to those areas. You go out with the Brotherhood to fight the Enclave, then you come back to the wasteland, you go out to fight some Deathclaws, then you come back to the Brotherhood, then you go out to the main Air Force base out there. You fight the Enclave, and then you do have a choice at the end of which area do you want to nuke with this satellite weapon thing. You can either nuke the regular base and get good karma, and that's pretty much the way the story is supposed to go. The Enclave is destroyed then, don't have to worry about them. Otherwise, you can nuke Megaton, because, why not? You can nuke it twice. You could nuke, I think, Rivet City, which I don't remember if that really results in anything super useful. I think you just lose karma. I don't think you actually get anything from it. It's just you blow up some place where a bunch of people lived. And you also destroy a lot of quest lines if you hadn't done them before, so that one's probably the worst target to do. And then you could also blow up the Brotherhood of Steel's main area, in which case then all the Brotherhood hates you, but you do get access to the Callahan's Magnum, which is a reference to Dirty Harry, and it's a pretty strong Magnum overall, but you get it at the very end of the main story of the game. Not super worth it, I would say, because unless you just speed ran to the end here, you're probably not going to be able to use it for the rest of the game. Or at least use it in very limited amounts throughout the rest of the game. There is new weapons that were also added with this, as well as new armor and new enemies. The new enemies, I think, are the most interesting because they wanted to make even harder enemies than they normally had in the game. There's a new version of a ghoul, that's the Ghoul Reaver. He actually is really tanky. He can do a lot of damage. He can do damage over time. I felt that he was more of a bullet sponge. When I played this, I played it on the very hard difficulty just to go through it again, and I really didn't have any issues except for with certain enemies like this. I don't think I was ever killed by them, but they just took forever to kill themselves. So it wasn't always the funnest to fight Ghoul Reavers. There is new albino scorpions around, which are quite strong. And they frequently get into fights with Deathclaws, which is interesting because the fight usually results in a tie where the Deathclaw will kill the Scorpion, but then the Deathclaw dying shortly afterwards from the venom that the Scorpion injected him with. So it's kind of an interesting interaction, and they are a strong enemy. I actually probably like them the best because they are something that's rather unique and feels like a step up in difficulty, but isn't just a damage sponge. They can do some damage. And then there's the Super Mutant Overlords that are also added to this, and they are probably the most difficult enemy in the game. They do very high damage, especially the ones with the tri-beam lasers. The ones with the Gatling lasers and the super sledges aren't that bad, but the tri-beam lasers do tons of damage to you. They have a lot of health. They can shoot surprisingly quick and accurate, and it's not always the most fun to fight them. For like armor, we got the new Enclave Hellfire armor, which has the highest armor rating in the game. We also got the Heavy Incinerator, which is a super fun weapon, even though it's not necessarily the most practical weapon. And we did get a few more unique weapons, like the Tesla Cannon and like a slow burn flamethrower. You can also get another alien blaster out of this that you otherwise wouldn't be able to, and some more alien blaster shots. So it does have some kind of cool things going around with it, but I find this one to be kind of just average. It continues the story and it has some okay side quests. The main quest is just alright. I'd probably put this one into C tier. Then we have Point Lookout. Point Lookout includes a whole new area to Fallout, which is actually worth revisiting because enemies do respawn. There is quite a few side quests to do. There is a very, I would say a very interesting main quest, but honestly the side quests are more interesting in Point Lookout. This is going further down to actually Point Lookout in Maryland. So we go down there. This is a swamp area. We have to deal with the local swamp people, the tribal people that are hanging out here, the various swamp animals, I guess, that are after us. We have a side quest where we can go figure out this Chinese spy's mission and complete it and then get a couple rewards. We can go and find these different samples from a boat that was there collecting soil samples, get information about the area. We can befriend a Lovecraftian villain, I guess, who wants a sacred book that we can either give to him or we can take it back to the wasteland and then purge it at the Dunwich building, which is a really cool area in itself. The main quest to Point Lookout is honestly not all that interesting to me, since you arrive at the island itself, or I guess the area of the swamp itself. You go up to an old mansion, you're, recruited by a ghoul there, you have to go fight a bunch of tribal people. He's just a jerk about everything, very unlikable character. Turns out he's fighting with an old brain that, and I mean that in the literal sense, he's fighting against somebody who is just a brain now in a jar, who is an old rival of his from before the war, where they're still trying to one-up each other, and by the end, I just end up killing both of them all the time because they're both so unlikable that it's just not worth keeping them around. But some of the other missions are actually pretty interesting, particularly the one with the tribe, where you're supposed to go to the Shrine of Enlightenment or whatever it is, and drink from these drug plants pretty much, and then you go on a trip and have part of your brain removed. You find out it was the ferryman that brought you there. You usually kill him, at least I usually do, and then you get his boat, so you can go back and forth between the wasteland and Point Lookout whenever you'd like. A lot of creepy, weird stuff in Point Lookout. I really enjoy it. I think that that's cool. The main story is kind of a drag on it, though. And I'd probably put this one into A tier as well. I think I'd put it below the Pitt, because I think I still enjoy the Pitt story more, even though the Pitt has a lot of issues. Point Lookout just does not have a good main story. It's lacking quite a bit. And our last DLC is Mothership Zeta. This one is where you go and actually go to the Easter egg, I guess, site of the alien crash. You can find this in the regular game of Fallout 3. You'll find a dead alien there with the alien blaster and some alien blaster shots with it. And that's pretty much all the alien blaster shots you get, unless you find the unique encounter of the Fire Lance, which is a random unique encounter that can pop up in various areas around the map. But it can pop up at any time, so you could find it right away at the very start of the game. And I actually did find it fairly early on when I was streaming the game again. But this, you're abducted into an alien spaceship, and then from that point on, it's pretty much just explore the alien spaceship and leave it. The main story to Mothership Zeta is really not all that great, I would say. It's pretty lacking, where it's just, that's it. You're captive here on the ship, you need to get out of the ship. You find some kind of interesting characters along the way, where you find a cowboy, a samurai, a astronaut who died, a soldier from Anchorage, a little girl who's been there for quite a while exploring the ship, and a merchant from the wasteland. So you can have these people follow you around, and you can have each of them be companions exploring different parts of the ship with you. You can also get various unique items here, and you are just fighting the aliens here. Now, the aliens themselves, the regular aliens, are not really pushovers in my opinion. You can kill them incredibly easy. even when you're low level. They don't have very much health, and the alien weapons do pretty well against them, so even if you ran here at the very start, you should be fine. The aliens with the shimmering armor or something are pretty much damage sponges and just annoying. You can kill them, but it's going to take a lot of shots. And then you also have like the alien abominations that show up here too, which are supposed to be alien-human hybrids of some sort. I'm not sure how they were made exactly, but they are also not all that difficult. They kind of just flail around at you. They do have longer reach, and they attack surprisingly faster than you would think, but they still aren't the most tanky thing in the game, and not that big of a deal. You also get to see all the other things that the aliens have acquired over the years, so you get to see them with original cars, with Brahmin, with old signs, with old war stuff, so you can find some weapons that people were working on before the war, like an alien or like a plasma pistol that's much stronger than a regular one. You can find a katana and give it to the samurai if you'd like, or you can keep it for yourself. You can learn the backstories of each of these characters. You can also learn the backstories of other abducted people, and the exploration in Mothership Zeta is really the best part about it. You get to explore the ship, you get to interact with weird things. If you're like me, you didn't take really any of the weapons that you normally use in the wasteland. You just are there to use the alien weapons and stuff, so that's pretty fun. Even though none of the alien weapons are incredibly impressive in my opinion, they're all kind of just okay. Then by the end of this DLC, you are fighting another alien ship with the new commandeered alien ship that you've been fighting your way through. You fight it off and you destroy the other alien ship, and then you can go back and forth between the alien ship and the wasteland. Now you can't actually explore the rest of the ship once you want to go back there though. It's limited to just the captain's quarters and then to the storage or cargo section of the actual ship. But I found that it's just kind of a pain to go back and forth between that area if you want to use it as a house. So it's kind of a cool area. It has some interesting things about it, but once you've played through it a few times, the charm of Mothership Zeta kind of wears off, I would say. So it's another one that I wouldn't really consider to be one of the best DLCs. So I think I'd actually put Mothership Zeta up into C tier. I think it's a bit more unique than Broken Steel. I like what Broken Steel does, where it's like, well, at least you get to play the rest of the game, and you can go back and do some other missions, and you get some new enemies, and there's some more reason to explore the wasteland. But Mothership Zeta, like, you get a fun adventure for the first time that you play it, and, maybe the second time. The alien place is just kind of okay, in my opinion. So I think this is where I would put all of the DLCs for Fallout 3 and the reasons why, as well as a brief explanation for each of them. Of course, this doesn't cover everything in Fallout 3. Fallout 3 is a massive game, and it was super fun to play through. I might be doing more of these tier lists. If you guys enjoy them, feel free to tell me down in the comments below if you'd like to see, like, weapon tier lists or character tier lists, or when we get around to the other Fallout games to stream, if you'd like to see more lists like this. Thanks for watching this. If you're new here, be sure that you get subscribed. That way you get notifications whenever I post these videos. Special thanks to all the supporters of this channel. I really do appreciate that. These are my members over here on YouTube and my patrons over on Patreon. If you would like to be a part of that, there are links down in the description. So if you guys would like to see more tier lists or other related content, be sure to click over here on this list right now, and I'll see you next time. Bye!